Hello, hello, hello. How everybody is doing tonight. I hope everyone's having a good Tuesday evening. Tonight we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that is about what you need to be doing as far as training when it comes to more of your off season, and how women's bodies are a little bit different than men, and how that plays a role specifically in what you're doing for training. So let's get into it. Oh, and then we're also going to talk about one of the biggest surprises that you may not really think about whenever you're doing some of your training this winter. So let's get into it a little bit more so. So when we think of training and we think of what we want to accomplish on the trail and what we want to have happen is that, one, we probably want to increase our speed. We also want to increase our general body position and our ability to maintain that body position over a certain period of time. And then we also want to know that want to be able to increase our strength for punchy climbs or increase our endurance, our cardiac endurance for those punchy climbs as well. The problem is that as women, we are more likely to have endurance type muscles than we are to have strength type muscles. And so that plays a huge role into what we need to be doing as far as training goes, and as far as what we should be focusing on whenever we're not riding our bike quite as much as we would like to. So a lot of people they feel tight a lot of times. They feel like they just need to stretch a little bit more. So a lot of us, we feel tight a whole lot more of the time than we actually think that we are. Let me rephrase that. So we feel tight, we think we need to stretch, and that's where yoga and some of those other aspects of training come in. And a lot of times our bodies, ladies' bodies, is actually that we're more flexible than what we should have. As a whole, ladies are more flexible and we need more strength. We have a hormone called relaxin, and we're also built a little bit differently. So this hormone called relaxin, it actually makes our ligaments more stretchy. Whenever those ligaments are more stretchy, our joints become more susceptible for injury, which means that our joints don't actually hit a wall for their end range feel. We can actually go further into the movement than actually what we need to do. And so we have to consciously stop it. We have to make a muscle turn on so we don't go into a range that our joint's actually going to stop. That's where some of us feel more tight, is because some of us have lacked strength that makes our body not trust that we can go even into different ranges of the actual strength realm. And so whenever it comes to our joints, we think about different areas of our body that are more susceptible for injuries. Our necks are one, our low backs are another, our shoulders are another one, and then some of the areas that we tend to compensate with are our trunk, our upper back, and then our hips. Those are the areas that we feel more tighter and that actually need a little bit more mobility. And so whenever you're doing your training, it's that you need to gain strength through shoulders, strength through neck, strength through low back, core, and then mobility through hips and mobility through upper back. And that's where it can, whenever you're thinking about training, whenever you're thinking about gaining speed, gaining endurance, gaining strength for that body position, it's actually you work on some of your weaker areas to gain those up, and then you're better as a whole whenever you enter the next season for doing more on the bike training. Because on the bike training requires a lot more of those muscle groups than you just on this trainer at home doing different sprint interval trainings, or on the spin bike in the gym doing sprint interval trainings. That also goes for those high intensity interval trainings. They're not bad. They're a great caveat. They're a great thing to include in your training. But they're not the biggest thing that I like to hit on when it comes to women. When it comes to us, we need strength. We need to get stronger as a whole. One of the main areas that we need to get stronger is our core, is our trunk. And when I say core, I don't just mean abs. Like, I'm talking like collarbones to pelvic floor. Like all of it, guys. Front and back. I say core because this is our core. It's our main gig. And if you'll notice, when I said the injuries, it was because it was our neck, our shoulders, and our low back. All those things are super important and played a role with via the core. And when I talked about the areas that need a little bit more mobility, they are really tied to the core as well. Our upper back, it's the main part of the core. Our hips, us as lady mountain bikers, more specifically, our legs are freaking strong. Like, we have these massive quads. Like, they're like beastie. They're awesome. They're so great. However, our legs are not driven by just our quads. They're driven by our hips. And some of us can have where we have really strong hips, aka glutes, and a really weak core. Some of us have a little bit of lacking in both of those. And with our wider structures for our pelvis, our core has to be even stronger than the same structure for a man that's a little bit smaller of a pelvis, a little bit more narrow. And also when it comes to our feet and our platforms. So there's a reason why, and you look about like ACL injuries for high school women athletes, collegiate women athletes. It's because our hips are wider, and if our glutes are not strong enough, I go like this because it's like your butt. If our glutes are not strong enough, then they can't control our knees. And these are all huge issues and huge things to think about. If you're going to push down on that pedal, if you're going to like really dig in for that punchy climb, and you're just using your quads, you're missing an entire other muscle group that can help you with getting a little bit faster, stronger, and have more balance for that punchy climb. And it's not that you have to do a high intensity interval training to actually get there. I've had personal things that have been told to me. So with the Core Crushers team that I did, a lot of people, I asked them, I was like, what was the biggest thing that you got out of here? And they're like, the knowledge that the core plays such a huge role in mountain biking. And then the next thing that they would say, you know what it was? They would say how it increased their climbing skills, how it made them climb so much better just from working on their core. And this isn't just like tiny exercises for core. It's not just really strong exercises for core. It's a little bit of mixture of both of those. So if you think that you know about how the core plays a role, I want you to just hit that like button for me. And if this is something new that's coming to light of how much this is actually playing a role, like I had Elisa, she said this, Carol said this, that she just didn't know how the core played such a huge role within it. Another girl, Gina, she said this, like their core has played such a dramatic difference in how they are functioning and riding their bike. And so for your training program for this winter time, you have to have a big core component. It has to be a main focus. And not just like endurance-wise, but also strength-wise for your core program. And what that means is that you need to do about 10 reps and you need to feel it in the last couple. Not form fatigue, but you need to like really feel it. So one of the best ways that I like to talk about levels of intensity, and a lot of people relate this back to what's called a 1 rep max, and the rate of perceived exertion, or what's called the RPE, has been validated or like tested research-wise to relate back to your max, your 1 rep max. And so use this. So not everybody likes to do a 1 rep max. I don't like to. I like to just listen to my body and it's what it's going to tell me and what I need, what I don't need. And so using that rate of perceived exertion, or your RPE, is how you do that. There's 2 different scales within it. One of them is a 6 to a 20, and this one rates back to a little bit more so heart rate range, and that's where it was developed. And then I prefer a little bit more so, because it's easier for me to think about it, a 1 to 10 range. 10 being that it's really, really, really stinking hard. It's extremely difficult to do. And at the end of some of your core exercises, you want to get to that extremely hard and really difficult and challenging. As most of the ladies that can probably speak to being in the core program, there's some exercises and some reps counts that they didn't get to the end of them because they taxed out before it, which is perfect. That means they're gaining strength during it, and I'm still pushing them in the program, and it's still a difficult enough exercise. Now, there's also exercises in there that gain you endurance. And so with your core exercises that you do at home or in the gym, make sure you're pushing your endurance side of it too, because you need it to be strong enough and have endurance for you going downhill and for you doing some of those corners, for you getting through a little bit more of those climby parts that aren't necessarily quite as punchy, but they're just long. You're like, oh, my core needs to work a little harder. My body needs to work a little bit harder. So one of the main parts for winter workouts is a core program that focuses on strength and endurance, and at least 3 to 4 times a week if you're really wanting to push it. It doesn't have to be long. It can be 10 minutes to 15 minutes, but that you really get into it for those 10 to 15 minutes. The second part within a winter workout program is strength for the rest of your body. Strength for your hips, strength for your shoulders, and for your neck. These can be done either with body weight or with adding other weights, kettlebells, bar presses, all of those things. I'm a bigger fan of body weights, and it's probably just because of how I've learned. So I've always seen people for PT, and then I jumped more into the fitness world. And most people were doing the exercises at home. Not everybody had a barbell to work with. Not everybody had other things. And so I tend to use bands, kettlebells, jugs of water, as you guys probably know, and also just other things that you can have at home to use. And those you can use, and body weight you can use to, same thing, stress it. Stress it to that RPE, that really high where you tax out at about 10 reps and you're like, oh my gosh, I am so tired. I can't do any more. Again, not form fatigue. You still want to do the exercise correctly, but you want to tax it out. Now, within research studies, even whenever you are focused in to increasing strength, you also need to have days of endurance. It has been shown, they did a research study where they did only strength exercises, they did only endurance exercises, and then they did strength with a little endurance, and they did endurance with a little strength. And they found that the people gained either more endurance whenever they did endurance with a little bit of strength, or strength with a little bit of endurance. That's where they gained those goals. They gained that movement sooner and better and kept it better. So you always want to mix, and you always want a mix of different exercises. So don't do the same exercises every time you go into the gym or every time you do them at home. They always need to be changing up at least every couple weeks because your body gets used to it. You always need to change these things up and make them more balanced, dynamic, challenging, one-sided. And so a lot of us don't think about doing one-sided exercises. You need strength through one side and the ability to hold that for one side. So doing like single leg deadlifts, single leg holds while you're like single leg standing while you're doing upper body exercises. Those are the strength things that you need to be thinking about for including and adding into it. I'm going to be releasing again my Climb Crushers program here soon. I'm making some pretty big changes to it. If you're interested in either one of these programs, let me know below. I'll send you a message and we'll talk. I'm adding in some different people and allowing some people to go through it on a special basis once you guys talk to me a little bit. So if you guys need a little bit more direction, but as a whole, think about those when you're writing up your programs and when you're going through it and going to the gym. Or even if you have a coach already, talk to them about it. Say you want more one-sided or unilateral stance exercises and you want to focus more towards strength. Make that push that way. It doesn't take a whole lot of time for you to start doing strength to feel the difference in how your body is working. There's a thing that's 0 to 6 weeks is whenever your neurological changes happen. And then 6 to 12 weeks is when you actually start hypertrophying the muscle, aka getting it bigger. But that 0 to 6 weeks is that connection. You get more muscle fibers to work in the muscle from that 0 to 6 weeks. And so you'll feel these gains during that time. And it won't be that you're already making the muscle bigger, but you'll feel those strength gains between that time. And it's glorious. It feels wonderful. And it pushes you on to do more of those strength exercises. So those are the big parts. Now you're like, well, Liz, what about my breathing? I don't feel like I could catch my breath as much. Well, guess what? Working on your strength actually makes you convert oxygen better and more efficiently, so you won't need as much oxygen if you actually work those muscles and get them stronger. I've had ladies in both the climb and core crushers that they work on strength more so, and they actually don't breathe as hard going uphill. It seems baffling because you think, well, I need to work my cardiac system. Ladies, we already have so much more type 1 muscle fibers that our endurance is pretty good. It's just that our strength is not. Did you know that after the age of 30, we start decreasing in how much strength we actually, if you didn't know strengthening, you decrease in how strong your muscles are. You'd lose strength. And so that makes it an uphill battle for our strengthening whenever we are doing it. And for us as riders, it makes that uphill battle for keeping that muscle strong. Isn't that baffling? After 30, I'm 33. I'm like, oh, goodness, I need to start doing more strength. So type 1 muscle fibers are endurance. You can go for so long. Type 2 muscle fibers are your power muscles. They're like your strength sprinter muscles. However, you can change your ratio of type 1 and 2. And I know that you see it in some of like the sprint athletes. Those ladies, they have like these massive thighs, these massive butts. They have changed over. They have a lot more type 2 muscle fibers than what they did originally before they started training. If you are good at endurance and think that you need more strength, I just want to know, and I want to hold you accountable. I want you to tell me that you're going to be adding in some more strength training to your workouts, adding in some more of these focused works so you can get stronger for biking, for riding, because if you can breathe better, then you're going to be able to ride better and you're going to have more fun out there. If you think that you need to breathe better, if you think that you need to walk on endurance, you probably do need a little bit of those high intensity interval trainings. I like to add them in like maybe once a week, or even just like a short 5-minute burst at the end of my strength training. And that's where I do some burpees, I do some high knees, I drop down, I do some other different like squat jumps, some more plyometric movements, and those help tax my system even a little bit more after I've already fatigued it out. And that's where my heart rate and my endurance system, my cardiac system can work on that recovery and high intensity part. Because your recovery and your rate of ability to recover is a really important part. So let's look at this as an overall. So core exercises, at least 3 or 4 times a week, 10 to 15 minutes is what I would do. I would add in strength for upper body and hips, at least 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, where you're fatiguing out those muscle groups and really stressing them. And then I would also add in, try to do 1 or add in like 5 minutes at the end of each of those strength exercises, a little bit of a high intensity interval, doing burpees till you're fatigued and tired, let your heart rate come back for recovery, and then stress it again. Get that recovery within it. So 4 workouts total in the week, cores included. At least 3 of those you're going to do a little bit of strength training, and at least 1 or 2 of those you're going to add in that high intensity interval at the end of it, just so you can get that heart rate cranking and moving while your muscles are already taxed. Now, in the winter, you can do these and you can have this as a bigger goal because you're not riding your bike as much. If you are riding your bike a whole lot still, then you want to make sure that you're doing your recovery purposes and you're recovering in it well. If you keep stressing hips, keep stressing shoulders, keep stressing core, and you don't allow your body to recover, then you're not going to get the gains that you want. Now, you can recover slower if you are on your period. You can recover slower if you don't have enough protein intake, if you're not getting your nutrition needs correctly, if you're not hydrating enough. Make sure you drink a lot of water. Also, if you're not doing some of the foam rolling and muscle recovery that you need to be doing within that. And so those are big keys within making sure that you stay injury-free as you ramp up these exercises, because these are to more balance your body so you can actually perform better on the bike and make these improvements, make these pushes this wintertime, and you're going to come back even stronger in the spring. I hope this all makes sense. If this makes sense as a general game plan, let me know. So just say makes sense on there. And then again, if you're interested in either one of these programs, the core one or the Climb Crushers one, let me know in the comments. and I'll send you a message individually and just see if you want to jump in on that. The Climb Crushers is going to be ready for another couple weeks. I'm hoping before Thanksgiving is that whenever it's going to be ready and I've made my changes to it. And then the Core Crushers is actually ready right now. So let me know if you're interested in either one of those. And then let me see if I have anything else on my thing. Just training rides are still very important. It's good to get on your bike. One for mental prowess, and also just out in nature, gravel grinds, getting out there on some fire roads if you don't have trails that you can ride in the wintertime. Because I can ride in the wintertime here, which is wonderful, and one of the reasons why I love living here. But I know a lot of you guys are covered in with snow, or it's just too wet, it's a freeze thaw, and you just can't get out there as much. Yeah, I think that's about it for today. I hope that this all makes sense. And if you don't end up coming to work with me with the Climb or the Core Crushers, then I hope this makes sense for you developing a plan for yourself and getting stronger in those general regions. You'll be amazed at how much it'll help with your breathing, how much it'll help with your endurance, and just with even those punchy climbs. Hope you guys have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you later on.